You know what that means. Time to pull this out. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today's video is going to focus on removing the complete drivetrain from this running, driving, seemingly perfect 2010 Camaro SS. It's got the LS3 and the TR6060 6-speed manual transmission, which I really want to put in my 69. As I explained in the last video, I tried to find a wreck one so I wouldn't have to do this, but I just couldn't find one for the right price and got tired of waiting. So got a great deal on this complete running car. Gonna yank the drivetrain out and you know, pop it in the 1969 Camaro. It should look like it was meant to be there. But I've never worked on a 5th gen Camaro SS. I'm gonna try and yank the transmission and the motor at the same time out the top. I think it'd probably be easier to take it out the bottom in most cases, but I'd like to sell the car as a roller. So I'd like to keep most of it together for now. So yeah, let's get right into it. You guys follow along and we'll see how hard it is to pull a drivetrain out of a 5th gen Camaro. That is indeed a car motor. Bone stock LS3. So I'm obviously pretty familiar with working on LS motors. Like I said, I've never worked on one of these, but this is not like a Corvette where the transmission's in the back. It's mounted, you know, traditional style, right to the back of the motor right here. So I'm just gonna kind of wing it. I think we're gonna start removing some of these accessories right off the front here, open up some room, remove, you know, drain all the fluids. We'll go inside, we'll remove the shifter and, you know, the center console and whatnot, and then we'll get up under the car. We gotta definitely undo the exhaust, drive shaft, tranny mount, and then, you know, we'll just start pulling, see what breaks or what doesn't. So like I said, let's start with the accessories and maybe some of the stuff on the interior, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, cruising right along. Starting at the back Battery's disconnected. Got the exhaust from the mufflers all the way to the cats off. You also probably saw, where did I put those? Oh yeah. Catalytic converters are off. So basically all that's left is the manifolds. Got the drive shaft down, heat shield down. Up here we got the radiator out. All sorts of assorted hoses, evap lines, airbox, air intake. Starting to undo some of the wiring harness now. Unplugging all the injectors, coils, all that stuff. Grounds, alternator wires. Just kind of tedious stuff, but I mean, I know it may or may not look like it, but we're kind of getting close. So I'm about to put the car back up in the air. But first thing, we'll go inside, pop the shifter bezel off so that that's ready to come out. We'll get some more of these wiring connections from the bottom. Again, never pulled one of these before, but I mean, I think all I have left to do is I'm going to leave the AC compressor in. So we'll pop that off. Unbolt the transmission crossmember, motor mounts. I'm not sure if I'll be able to leave these accessories on, but these cars are big, so I think that, you know, there's plenty of room here to move forward and then up and out. So yeah, we're just kind of playing it by ear here, but yeah, let's get inside, get that bezel off, then get back under, unhook some more electrical connections, get this harness out of the way, and see if we can't pop this thing out. Alright, update. Intake manifolds off, AC compressor is unbolted, belts off. I'm going to try and leave these accessories on. Power steering lines are disconnected. Transmission cross members unbolted, transmission's hanging down, supported by a jack. This is kind of the point in any motor pool where visually it looks like everything's off, but it's probably not. So really the only thing to do now is just start pulling and see what we might have missed. Got the load leveler hooked up here, the valley cover. Let's grab the engine crane and start pulling. I'm gonna try and take both the engine and transmission out at the same time, so I'm gonna just kind of shoehorn it over the top here, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, that was fun. Motor and transmission out of the 2010. Made a big old mess here. This is after me cleaning up using a bunch of towels and stuff, but leaked just about every fluid imaginable onto the floor. But that's all right. Got the whole kit and caboodle out here as one, motor and transmission. So that was not too bad. As with removing most, EFI engine systems, 75% of the time was spent unplugging sensors and switches and, getting your hands in tight to reach or, tight spots. But we got it out. Good to go there. And in the nick of time, late last night, pushed the Camaro back inside, and I'll show you why. So yeah, finished 2 hours before this awesome snowstorm moved in, dumping about 12 inches. So 69 Camaro, safely back in the garage, motor's out. Roller 2010 is outside. The rest of the fleet's in here. So we're good to go. Next, I'd like to separate the motor and transmission and get the motor on the engine stand. Interesting story, you may or may not have noticed in the footage last night. My Harbor Freight engine hoist decided that when the 1,500 pounds of motor and transmission were dangling over the fender that it needed more fluid. So pro tip in the future, check your engine hoist before you start lifting the motor to make sure that they don't need fluid or need bleeding, because it's really frustrating when they're dangling over the fender and the motor won't go any higher. I ended up having to drop it all the way back in, bleed the system, made a big mess with hydraulic fluid, and then yank it all back out. So just do that in the future. But yeah, let's get these two separated, get this on the engine stand, and maybe start taking some of these accessories apart, and we'll talk about what the plan is for this motor before it gets dropped into that 69. All right, got the motor and transmission separated. Motor's up on the engine stand. Transmission's down on this furniture dolly. So this is a TR6060. It's basically the OEM version of a T56 Magnum. Why they call it the TR6060 is because it's very specific for different applications. This obviously is for a Camaro. It's got a LS specific bell housing. Internals are basically the same as the T56 Magnum, but these ones use this, basically it's like an offset shifter. So your shifter linkage is up here, shifter's way back here. It uses this, weird mechanism here. So that's one drawback of the TR6060. The other major one is this. It's not your typical slip yoke style output, which is what would connect to your slip yoke joint right there out of a standard transmission. So you need to have a custom drive shaft made if you're going to use this. So we can do that. We can measure, have a custom drive shaft made, and deal with the potential fitment issues of the offset or remote shifter, as they call it. But what I'd rather do is basically convert this thing to a full T56 Magnum, and you really only need two major components. Unfortunately, it involves complete disassembly of the transmission. Basically, we need to replace the entire main shaft and all the gears and wheels and stuff on that. And then this tail housing. So from here back, we can convert to the T56 Magnum tail housing. So I'm thinking about doing that for a few $100s in parts. We can go with a standard style drive shaft, and the shifter's right where it needs to be in the car. So looking into ordering parts for that, but that'll be down the road a little bit. So there's that. Clutch is off. Engine's on the stand, like I said. Intake manifolds over there. We're going to be reusing all that. Also just got the gas pedal out of that car since we're going to be using drive-by wire. So this is the gas pedal out of the donor Camaro. So next, I'd like to start breaking this engine down. Even though it runs great, you know, we're not going to leave anything completely stock. Can't be doing that. So we're going to be putting a cam in here, which means we need to strip off all these accessories. Going to be doing long tube headers, so those stock manifolds got to go. Because the motor has 120 something thousand miles on it, it's probably a good chance to do the lifters while we're at it. So that means I'll probably take the heads off, clean those up. You know, typical LS cam swap stuff. We'll do the front timing cover gasket. I've got the swap oil pan, the Holley oil pan to put on, so we'll pop the oil pan off. You know, rear main seal, oil pan gasket, new head gaskets, new head bolts. So you guys know the drill. So I'm going to be getting all those parts on order here soon, but in the meantime, let's get this motor stripped down, see what we're dealing with, and see exactly what we need to order. So here's where we're at. Got most of the accessories and stuff off the motor. Obviously, we took the intake manifold off before we removed the engine from the car. Exhaust manifolds, air conditioning, clutch, water pump, alternator, power steering, all that stuff's off. It's about 20 degrees out right now, and I really wanted to clean the most. So that's why I left a lot of this stuff on, like the timing cover, heads, valve covers, which I just popped off. Plugged up the exhaust ports, intake manifold ports as best I could. Gave this thing a quick power wash just outside the garage door with the water that we hooked up from inside. Just to get this thing as clean as possible. I think we're going to end up painting the block, but you know, now our degreasing is all done. We made sure we didn't get any water in the motor. I mean, the kids said that this thing was maintained, and you can tell that it was. No sludge at all. You know, really clean inside. Everything looks good. We're not going to really reuse any of this except probably the rockers, but you know, everything looks good as far as this valve train. So let's keep going. Let's pop the heads off, see what the cylinders look like, and getting there. Almost time to start throwing some parts back at this thing. Who knew all this stuff could take up so much space? But we're gonna have to make a little more. Get my valve train organizer down next to the Corvette New Balances there, or the cheapo New Balances that we Sharpied on there. We're on a budget here, you know? But yeah, let's get the valve train organizer down, get these push rods, rockers off, heads off, and keep going. block deck all cleaned up. And the way I do that is just a razor blade. So some people will take like a die grinder with a bristle disc, and you might be okay with that, but I try to avoid using anything super abrasive, especially on aluminum blocks. You definitely don't want to create a low spot. So I find the best method is some brake clean and a good old-fashioned razor blade. Just come through, takes off 90% of all this old gasket material. So we got that done. Sometimes I'll also come through with a block, big flat block that you'd use for body work, and some 320 or 400 grit sandpaper with some soap, and just really lightly, big long strokes, just to make sure everything's nice and flat. You give a little bit of surface for the head gasket to bite into. Not a lot, just really light, big strokes with a block, and I've had good luck with that. So both sides clean, valley cover gasket area is clean. The block is in excellent shape. Cylinder walls look awesome. Cross hatchings there. Pistons are dirty. You can actually see in one area, just a quick hit with the razor blade cleaned all that up. So we'll clean all this up more later. But I just wanted to get the block, good to go. But like I said, the cylinders look really good. Everything looks great. Camshaft looks good, even though we're not going to be using that. So yeah, no surprises at all, except for that thing falling down. That was a surprise. No surprises at all with this LS3 block, LS3 engine as a whole. What I'm going to do next is get this thing ready for paint, which means I need to mask off the block sealing surface, paint the block, and then we can take the oil pan off, start throwing on some new parts. Got the cylinder heads here. I'm going to have to resurface these in a similar fashion because they are also aluminum. All my parts scattered here to get these organized, but more importantly, we've got parts coming for that. Big old camshafts, lifters, springs, everything we'll need to do a cam swap on this thing. You guys see me do it on my Corvette engine. Same process, basically the same motor, just a little more displacement, but all that stuff got ordered today. It's going to be here in a matter of days, and we'll be putting all this stuff back together. This is going to be a great transformation for this motor from higher mileage, corroded, dirty looking, this. We're gonna make all this look brand new. But I'm gonna save that for the next video, so make sure you tune in for that. I got a whole bunch of brand new parts coming. Just a sneak peek. This whole row between the Vet and one of the Camaros is all new parts. Don't look over there, those are for the Corvette. But all that is for this and this. So stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already, comment, like, share, whatever you guys wanna do. Before you know it, this will be in there. Catch you guys next time.